I can like hear my vocal fry and it bothers me. But I'm not trying to do it. I just maybe need more coffee, I don't know. I do that like it'll change anything. I don't know, maybe. Anyway. For this video, I thought it would be fun to walk you through the nitty-gritty of designing a new label for bath bombs. I am right now finalizing my whole packaging plan for bath bombs, hoping to launch them with my holiday line after Thanksgiving. This label design process, I specifically had a video in mind for it, so I saved like every iteration of every possible idea I had for the bath bomb label. And I did that with the idea of like just running through how I went from where I started to where I ended up. I think that anyone out there who has to DIY their own labels, like disclaimer, if you can afford to work with a professional designer, work with a professional designer. I cannot wait for the day when I can afford to have someone else who's an expert in this do it. I'm like, I can't wait to like see what that'll look like, but it's just not in my budget right now. And I know probably a lot of you who watch my videos, that's the same situation you're in, especially if you're just starting out. That's unfortunately just like usually something that's not in your budget. So that's why I wanted to walk you through everything I was thinking as I went through all these variations and why I ended up where I did and why things I think wouldn't work, all of that kind of stuff, to maybe help you as you are designing product labels for your own business, or if you just like watching the thought process behind these sorts of things, which, you know, you do not have to be a business owner to be entertained by this, hopefully. So all that being said, let's just jump right in. The first place I start, obviously, kind of a no-brainer, but it is part of the decision, is like, what shape is this label going to be? Sometimes the packaging that a thing comes in dictates the shape without you getting much wiggle room. But for a bath bomb, there are multiple ways that I could package it. I could package it in a tiny little box. There's different types of paper I could wrap it in. All of these things I wanted to figure out before I even messed with the label, because if that part changes, the label design is kind of pointless. So I decided on a sort of standard tissue paper. It's actually a large coffee filter. It's like a commercial grade or commercial size coffee filter, because it ends up being the right size for these little heart-shaped bombs that I made. I was messing around with like round bath bombs, your sort of typical bath bomb shape, and it just like, I don't know, it was kind of a pain. Getting them to dry was also a pain. And then I found this heart-shaped mold, and it was so cute. I was originally gonna get it, I think, for Valentine's Day or something, or like Mother's Day, and then just realized like, well, I can use the heart shape whenever I want. Like, it doesn't have to be holiday specific. So I went with the heart shape and then wrapping it up in this little tissue paper. I love the finished shape of it. So I knew that that was gonna be my main packaging. And then I also loved the idea, because all of them would be in the same color paper. I had thought about doing different color papers, but because I do seasonal scents, I didn't want to have to buy a bunch. It's just yet another supply piece that I didn't want to have to figure out, how do I buy the right amount? Like all the stuff that like ends up, I think, sometimes causing more waste. I didn't want to do that. So it's like, okay, they're all going to be in white tissue paper. So how do I make it easy to spot at a distance the difference between the scents? And that's where I got the idea for like a little piece of silk ribbon in different colors for each scent. I love like a hand-dyed silk ribbon. I think it comes from my wedding planning days. Like a bouquet wrapped with like a gorgeous silk ribbon is such a satisfying visual. And I've been trying to figure out a way to get like satin ribbon in my packaging for a while. And this was sort of like ooh, I can use it here. So that's what I'll be tying them with. And then knowing what the general shape of the bath bomb would look like, it was kind of obvious that I needed a circle label or tag. I wasn't sure if I was gonna do just like a sticker on the front or a tag that sort of ties into it, but I knew either way it needed to be a circle. So once I've decided the overall shape of the label, it's easier for me to reference an existing label design or like layout from a product I already have in my lineup as a starting point. Like they don't necessarily have to be like matchy exactly the same, but sometimes the hardest part is just figuring out like what's my starting template that I'm gonna mess around with. So that's what I always do. And for me, I don't have a ton of circle labels. I basically have the tops of my candle tins, the like dust covers for my large candles, and my lip balms. Those are the three, unless I'm forgetting something, which is possible I am. So knowing those are the three circular label designs I have to go off of, the other thing to factor in is the size. Because the bath bomb is like, I don't know, about this size, it's not as big as the candle tin top or the dust cover. So I also have to consider the scale of the font. And I knew that the layouts I have for those two candle, like circular designs, they were just gonna be, the text would be too small on this size that I'm doing for the bath bomb. So the lip balm label is very small, obviously. It's just a little lip balm tin. So that's where I started as my sort of like inspiration for the circular label. So here you can see the first mock-up I did using the lip balm design as inspiration. I added these two outer borders, the two darker circles you see there on the outside, because again, you have to factor in that on a lip balm tin, it has a natural border itself because the package is only slightly larger. The like tin itself is only slightly larger than the label I put on top of it. But with the bath bomb, this was gonna have to be its own thing. So I just wanted something that felt a little bit more contained. I don't know. This has to do a little bit with just your general vibe. If you have a more minimal packaging look, you probably don't need something like that. But that's why I added those. Otherwise, it's pretty consistently the same as the lip balm label. It's got the Bushyl logo is the largest piece because I want people to really take in the brand name before anything else. It's got the sort of sketch drawing of the fragrance notes. So for this bath bomb that's milk and honey, there's like the honeycomb, the bee, and the pitcher of milk. And then it also says what it is. That's important, the bath bomb. And those two little notes of like small batch, made in Milwaukee, and the size. So that's where I started. This wasn't blowing me away. For some reason, I love the lip balm label. Sometimes these labels look really great in a certain color palette with certain other elements, like maybe the sketched drawings of the fragrance notes, like it looks better in one way. But I love it in a lip balm tin. I wasn't like blown away by it in this fragrance. So I knew that I definitely was not done here, needed to come up with some other options. I really love on a circular label when the text goes around the border. That's just like, I don't know why there's something so pleasing in that visually in terms of like when I see that on other packages. So I always am trying to incorporate that in and I really struggle to get it to work. So this next one, I was just sort of playing around with like, could I make that work? But I think because the scale of this, again, is so tiny, that text on the outside would just be too small to read. And I can't shrink the inner text at all because I need that to be pretty big as well. So that was something where like I tried it, it immediately didn't work, time to move on. But you have to like, some of these things you just need to put on paper. Obviously I'm designing on my computer, but just to make sure that you've covered your bases. Another sort of general layout I messed around with, even though I said that the exact layout of the candle dust cover wasn't gonna be right for something this small, I used it as inspiration, as another option for this, this bath bomb design. So that's where this version comes up. I kept those outer circles. Again, I like the way it sort of contains the design and makes it feel framed. But then I added that top little image peek out. I don't know what to call that, but I've got that on the dust covers and I love that. I love a way of getting those botanical drawings in there. So this one, I added that piece, but otherwise kept the text fairly similar to the design that I had started with that was inspired by, oh my God, these bugs. What's interesting about any time I use the botanical drawings, these sort of like vintagey fruit or like floral or whatever the fragrance notes are, I use these for my candle tins and the dust covers. The tricky thing with them though is that some of the drawings, because they're all so different, some of them look really great in a certain format and other ones it just doesn't translate. And I have to factor in as many versions as possible when I'm deciding on a final design, because I don't want to back myself into a corner that then doesn't work for other versions, other fragrances, that kind of thing. So I did like the way this one looked in Milk and Honey, but that's when I need to bring in other scents to make sure that, like, especially with the initial collection I'm gonna launch, I want all 4 of those to look really good together. So what I did next was I did it for, I'm gonna do Lavender Lemon as one of the year-round bath bomb fragrances. So I pulled that one up. I did like that one still. I thought it was still working with that. Next I pulled up Cucumber Rose. That is the fragrance that I use for my bath salts that people really love. And I think it's just like a really fresh, it's not overly floral. So even though it's got the rose in there, if you're someone who's not huge on florals, I wouldn't even like super describe this as floral. It's honestly more like fresh and sort of spa-like before it's necessarily a floral, even though obviously there's floral notes. But the image I found for this one, I didn't love the way it was framed. I didn't think it looked bad, but for some reason it wasn't working quite as well as the other 2. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, that like you have to consider the entire line and how those variations are gonna look before you make a decision. And then I also pulled something for Coconut Vanilla, because that's the 4th bath bomb scent. And this one, again, it's just like not quite as eye-catching. And I want all of the bath bombs to look equally appealing. Different people like different kinds of fragrances, and I don't want you to feel like you're getting the uglier bath bomb because you prefer coconut vanilla as a fragrance over, you know, lavender or whatever. Another thing that I do when I'm designing these labels is, like, if I'm feeling stuck, if I'm feeling like the things that I'm coming up with on my own are just like not really working, I always go back to inspiration. It's like I need new inspiration for where to go next. For me, that's usually Pinterest. It's just so convenient. I look up packaging design. I have some images already saved. Like if I see something I like, I save it just for future reference, but I also search new things. And I don't even know what I searched to find this image, but there was something about the way that the middle was like the white label sort of thing, and then there was all this flowery around the outside. I was like, well, maybe I could take a little inspiration from that. Obviously, this inspiration photo is larger and it's not circular, so I don't want to copy anything exactly anyway. That's a terrible idea. Don't do that. But even as inspiration, like, I had to take it sort of loosely as inspiration. So I came back to Canva and I used those same vintage images and put them behind this sort of shield graphic, which I thought was very cool. Again, feels sort of vintagey. I don't have it so far in anything else that I'm using. So that's something to consider, is like, is this straying too far down a different direction from the branding I already have? Or is it straying away in a good way? Like, is this taking me in a new direction that is good and will like push the other designs? So I did really like the way this one looked. I thought that it allowed more of those botanical drawings to sort of shine through. And so it felt more well-rounded than the other version. So I did like this one a lot, but I also was nervous that, like, when these are all lined up next to each other, again, is it too busy? Does it lack cohesiveness? How can I create something that maybe ties these together better, where like the only real difference is the color and it's not so much all of the things? So what I did was I took those botanical drawings and I tweaked the tint and the hue so that it really just reflected the like general color of that scent. So it's the same image, it's the same drawing, but now it's sort of muted out into one color. And I really liked that. Like, I felt like that, okay, this is a strong contender. I knew I wasn't done because it wasn't exactly what I was hoping for, but I really liked the option and I knew I would keep that when I was comparing everything together. I mean, I'm gonna keep all of them, but you know, this one I felt like was something that was gonna be hard to beat. I also did another version where I just flat out took the illustrations out. Like maybe it was this shield image that I was really responding to, and I wanted to make sure that like that was an option too. Just a plain color background and the shield with all the text. And I liked that. I don't think it was quite as exciting. It's not as exciting as the drawings, but I thought that this was a really good option. Then I went back to that sort of dust cover inspired one where the botanical drawings on top just weren't quite hitting. And I was like, I like the layout of this though. There was something that was really satisfying about that little cut off half circle at the top, even though what was inside of it wasn't really working. So sort of the same thing as what I did with the shield versions. I was like, well, what if I just made that a flat color? Like, what if it was just a solid and then I incorporate the scent note line drawings somewhere else? So that's what I did next. I moved the logo up into the solid color half semicircle kind of thing. And this I also really liked. I felt like this is certainly more modern. It just feels a little bit more contemporary. It definitely feels in line with the bath bomb design and that sort of simplicity. So this one I also really liked. And it's probably at this point when I realized like, shoot, I like a lot of these. Like this might be a really hard decision, which is a good problem to have, like better than like not liking anything you're coming up with. But also I was a little bit concerned that it was gonna be too many decisions, that I was gonna have like that, I don't know what they call it psychologically, but when there's too many choices, you're more likely to be disappointed with the one you stick with. And I didn't want to put myself in that position, but I was really liking all of these. And I still had to come back to, like I said, I really like when a circle label has like text in like an art, I don't know how to describe it, but you know what I mean? Like when the lettering is also circular, I really just wanted to push myself to find something that sort of worked with that. So that's where this last variation comes in. It was a lot of like tweaking with scale, like how large is that center line drawing of the scent notes? What little things do I put on the side? You know, there's always a balance between like what information do you need to have and what information is just sort of like fun to add and is like a marketing choice. And so I messed around with this a lot, but when I started putting it in the other fragrance notes as well, the colors on these aren't quite exact. Like I just needed colors to finish the design, but these will be tweaked when I get the silk ribbons in my possession and I can like play around with that. Pulling these together, I also really liked this one. This is like what I was talking about earlier about like, it's different enough from what I have that it's maybe like pushing me in a new direction, like a direction I want to go in slowly. So I think it still works with my other package designs. Like I think it's similar enough that it doesn't feel like a totally different brand, but it's also different enough that it's like, oh, I might start tweaking things to like go in this direction because I'm really loving this. Once I've got all of these in Canva, there's only so much deciding you can do when you're like staring at it on a screen. You definitely need to like print these out to scale, cut them out, put them with the packaging, test that sort of out. And I did that. It didn't make anything obvious. It wasn't like, oh yeah, this is definitely the winner. So I knew which ones I liked the most. I think once I printed them out and was looking at them with the actual bath bomb, became clear that I really liked the circular lettering one. I don't know how to describe them. And my second favorite was the like all one color botanical shield. So I liked the botanical drawing on there, but I much preferred when it was all one hue. So it wasn't so distracting. They weren't so different from each other. Those were my two favorites. So I printed off all of the variations, each on their own sort of paper, and I was getting together with girlfriends anyway. And so I brought those with me. And luckily for me, my friends are my target audience. Like they represent a demographic that is who I sell to. So getting their feedback is genuinely helpful. They're like a really fun focus group for me. And so I brought all of those and it was sort of immediately like, oh, circular lettering, like that's the winner. They also liked the botanical one too, but with all, I think I had 5 versions there, you know, just going through what I've shown you. I made those in all the different fragrance notes, and without me saying anything, like they immediately went to that one. So that one I love. I do think it's really fun. It feels really finished, like it feels elevated in a way that's really exciting. And I think it's very like clean and just like easy to process what's on there. So that is the one I ended up going with. I also decided that I wanted it to be more of a tag. The way that this tissue paper folds up around a bath bomb, there's just like lines. It is so hard to get a sticker to lay flat on it, and that bothers me. It just like drives me nuts. So a tag is sort of perfect. I do think I'll put like a glue dot on the back so that it stays. I don't want like a tag that's sort of flapping around and then hard to read. So it is a tag, it ties through the ribbon, and I've got one little mock-up that I'm just obsessed with. I can't wait to do the other fragrance notes, but this has been such a process for me. I love package design, but I also get so frustrated with how long it takes me to do and how much that delays my progress and like prevents me from launching something. But what's really satisfying about being this detailed about it is that when it's finally finished and you have that finished product and it looks at least very similar to what you had in your mind, it's like a really rewarding part of this job. I can't wait. I'm very curious to know what your favorites are. Like, which of the designs did you think I was gonna end up with? Which one do you think I should have? Very curious to hear what you think. I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoyed just like going through all of my neuroses with me as I try and narrow down a package design. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for that bath bomb launch at the end of November.